Oi, brovs. I'm going to be doing a very hopefully quick mix breakdown. Um, I like nerding out in this stuff, and I haven't made anything creative in a while, so I felt like I wanted to share it. So I guess starting out with my mix template, I have it laid out as I would on like our DLive at church. We have our output layers technically. Right up front. So this would be the right bank for me on the DLive. First layer is drums. Next layer is instruments, and the last layer is vocals. I do have some stuff kind of sprinkled in here sporadically, like the effects are next to their respective sources. I have a lot of parallel compression going on everywhere, especially on the drums. I hate samples, and I refuse to sample these drums, so I try to get them as good as they can sound. Good EQ, parallel compression. You see these things called crush. It's when they're getting absolutely smashed by compression. Just to help the transient stick out more, make it sound a little bit thicker and punchier. I do it to the main bus as well, and then I just kind of blend it in. Vocal chain. Start with a little bit of gain control because the gain coming from the console, we have to accommodate for the room. So I gained it up just a smidgen, or down in this case. Like these vocals I have to do +10. This one I have to do -3. And then I run it into a preamp model, just to give it a little bit of spice. Run the vocals through a tuner, and then only subtractive EQ. And this is actually a dynamic EQ, so once the vocal hits a certain threshold, it'll start cutting. So specifically here in the hertz zone, I start cutting to about -6, I think, -4. And then these are just like nasally and boxy spots. And then I have it running into a de-esser before I hit compression. And then we have a multi-band. Again, we have a band doing work for where it hurts, a little bit of the mud. I still want to keep warmth, so I don't really do a whole lot. And then I run into two models, an 1176 and an LA2A. 1176 just to get the fast stuff, react really quickly, and then the LA2A to smooth it off the top. And then I run it into a fresh air plugin, just to bring a little bit of life back into it. And then virtual tape machine. For tracks, we cheat. So the synths are all running through two tracks. Well, really one. It's coming through a mono input. But we do have keys, and we do have an acoustic guitar. Pretty much, I have to gain the snot out of it. So this preamp model, I have 24 dB. Just to gain it up. I didn't do the same thing that I did here. This template is a few weeks old. It's not up to date with our current gain structure. And then it runs into an 1176, where the compression really helps the strings stick out. EQ, I have a side EQ for the strings. That way it pops up left and right really nicely. The keys, the only thing I do is I bump the hertz zone a little bit, and then I smooth everything out with an LA2A. The bass guitar is where it kind of gets a little muddy. I might get crucified for this here, but so our bass guitar is gained super, super, super low in preamp because there's just so much static that comes from it. It's a bass guitar that goes directly into a DI box into our system. So we gain it super low. That way we can have a super low threshold gate on it. And then we bring all the signal back in compression, which is the same thing I'm kind of doing here. I have it running into two preamps, the same one with the acoustic, 24 dB of gain. And then I have it running into a distressor, which really thickens it and adds a little distortion, and then into an LA2A. Next, I have EQ. just on the band where you can really hear the fingers or the plucking of the strings. And then I have it going into some harmonic saturation, which then goes into a cab emulation, which has a Tube 9 overloud distortion pedal, and then a compressor, and then, man, I forget which models these are, but these are like, this is like a 1959 Fender head, and then these are 10-inch subs. And then this EQ is solely for side chaining, so I have it side chained to the kick drum, so whenever the kick drum hits, it pulls this space here at 50 hertz. And then I have it running into a multi-band, that way it doesn't get carried away in the low end. It stays a little bit controlled. As far as the drums go, there's tons of processing here. I run the kick drum mics into its own bus. So we have the kick in mic, we have the kick out mic. I have pretty much everything gated. I have a little bit of saturation on it just to excite it. The EQ, kick drum mic, I have pretty much everything sub 50 hertz taken out. Everything else is left in just because it blends really nicely with this kick out mic, which is, it's just boosting the low end. That's all this microphone is used for. Compression, just an 1176 on those. Lots of saturation on the crush just to further excite it. I do have, where do I have it in here? I have a model of a Pultec. Man, it juices the drums really, really well. The snare, tons of processing done. Like I said, I don't want to use any samples. What are they called? Samples. No samples are used. So lots of stuff happening with the snare. I use a silencer to debleed the cymbal microphones. Ghost notes enabled, that way you'd hear the the ghost notes. I'm not going to repeat that. Pretty aggressive EQ curve, not going to lie, especially when it comes to taking out the ring. About plus 9 dB for the fundamental. For the smack and the attack, very, very aggressive. Kind of the same thing with the bottom. I really want that thud to come through, so it's a little bit aggressive. You could probably blame my compression for how aggressive it has to be, but transient shapers on pretty much all of the drums. Let's hear what it sounds like. No effects and no room mics. I probably could have just pulled my VCA, but why would I do that? I want to make it hard.
That makes no sense, so I won't be going under. I'm not held by my constraint.
And I'm going to start adding the spatial effects, so like the house mics and the mix verb, just to show you how much that does. The mix just came to life with those microphones. Here's the mix bus verb. That adds a little bit of low mid information without making it muddy. Here's kit verb. Snare verb, plate. Instrument verb. And vocal effects. if you see here, I do have sidechain compressors here, all coming from the vocal bus. So I don't want there to be reverb as they're singing. I just want to catch the tail when they're done singing. And that's exactly what this sidechain compression is doing, is allowing me to catch just the tail. That way it's not sending in so much muddy or taking up any of the frequency spectrum that I don't want it to. Let's start soloing stuff. Let's solo the drums. Next, the bass guitar. This is my favorite part. I love the way this bass sounds. And in context. And then the instruments. So like I said, we cheat a little bit. We have a lot coming through the tracks. We just don't have the volunteers right now to play electrics or synths right now. So occasionally we'll have a key player, we'll have an acoustic player. And then let's go vocals.
He won't fail. He won't fail. He won't.
All right, and then in context.
He won't fail. He won't fail.
And then here's house mics. And in context. And across the drums specifically, I have lots of limiters. So like on the kick bus, I have a limiter. On the snare, I have a limiter. On the drum bus itself, I have a limiter. On the crush bus, I have a limiter. And then I have limiters spread across my mains. I don't really want to cut so much so hard. I want to do a little bit at the time just to control those transients. That way I'm not getting any transient peaks as the song is playing, especially from the snare when it just pops right through. So I just have an EQ that shows me what's going on spectrally. And then I have an SSL G-Bus compressor. This is a model of the SSL G-Bus. A little bit of air on the entire mix. Multiband doing just a little around the hurt, around the mud, and then a little bit more low-end control. It doesn't really do a whole bunch. So it's doing like half a dB of gain reduction at most. Across the entire mix, you don't really want to do a whole lot of work. Another virtual tape machine just across the entire thing, just to excite the entire mix. A little bit of additive and subtractive EQ. This is like the hiss that you get from harsh S's and the cymbals. Again, this is very, very little gain reduction, dB and a half. This is a little bit of attack and fundamental of the vocals. And this is just general muddiness. This is on a dynamic EQ so that the louder the mix gets, the more it cuts. It already does very little, but that's just there as a precaution. And then again, another set of limiters, limiter, and then it goes into a stereo image where I widen it a little bit, and that's about it.